Ashe, Ma'at Imhotep. This is the Truth Be Heard. My name is Raymond Witcher, and I will be your host. Today, we're going to have a presentation on how Christianity spread around the world. All right, but first, I want to welcome and thank the new subscribers that have joined this channel. I appreciate your support. And I'm going to go over the circle for that reason. I usually, during my first presentations, I did a lot on trying to show that this circle represents, the circumference of this circle represents the realm of our understanding. Everything that we think we know and everything that we believe is based on what's inside our exposure in the realm of our circle. But if we pull the circle away, we see that it's more outside of the circle than inside the circle. And that's when we learn. Because as long as we believe or think we know everything that there is to know, and as long as we stay inside our circle, we won't have any questions because we already think we have all of the answers. But once we can do this and pull that circle away and see there is much more outside of our circle than inside, and start asking questions, because our Creator did not make us to believe all of our lives. We should have much more that we can say down in life than I believe our Creator made us to know. All right, so we don't want to stop at believing. All right, don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to get into the presentation. And let me blow this up a little bit for you. Hold on. I want you to be able to read this. Okay, this is to recognize our ancestors, okay? The purpose of this, I want you to pause this and read what I have over here. I don't want to go over it because I don't want to make the videos too long. But please pause this and just read over here. But I'm just going to give you a summary of what this means. Because most of us, or especially people that are going through depression, anxiety, and a lot of psychological or mental things, we will feel that we are alone and nobody understands us. But that's because we haven't gotten outside of our circle. Because when we get outside of our circle, we see that we have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, 32 great-great-great-grandparents. And if you go on down the line doing this multiplication, you will see that we have, if you go back 20 generations, we have over 1 million ancestors, okay? And if one of those ancestors was absent out of that thread, you and I wouldn't be here, all right? So each of these ancestors have been all through these 20 generations, they've been reincarnated in us. And we are the ones walking down. If you have any children, you just were reincarnated too. Okay? So we have to recapture our spirituality. Okay? We need to know what our spirituality is. This is what religion took from us. Okay? So I'm not bashing religion. I am opposed to religion, but I'm not bashing believers. Let's put it that way. Okay. Christmas holidays, we're in it. Christmas was yesterday. All those that celebrate Christmas, I hope that you had a pleasant and wonderful experience with your family. I don't celebrate it. I don't judge those that do. But I want us to grow spiritually. Okay. Now, if spirituality and religion can survive together, great. okay? But don't disregard our African spirituality. This is where all of this came from, all right? We're going to get down into the presentation, all right? And I'm starting back here because I'm starting back here on this first slide because, let me turn this off. It keeps going off. Excuse me. This is a slide from the.
It looks like you haven't.
This slide is from the previous presentation, and I try to do these presentations where they are. The previous one is leading into the next one, and this one is leading into the next one, so that they're easy to follow because I'm trying to do everything in a timeline. The best way for me to show you what I'm trying to show you is to keep it within a timeline, okay? So in the last presentation, we went over, there are like 1.4 billion Catholic churches worldwide within Africa. Okay, Vatican counts almost 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide, with Africa the fastest growing continent, and Europe is in decline. All right, I'm not going to go over all of this. I'm putting it here for the ones that have not seen the previous video. You can pause it right here and you can read this. Okay, but what it's showing is, and this is from history of a previous video, Africa in 2019 had over 15,000 Catholic priests graduate, and only like 1,500 engineers graduate. Regardless of whether it's Africa, America, Jamaica, Haiti, South America, India, anywhere on earth, especially Africa. Now, you'll see this down in this presentation. No priest, no bishop, no pope, no rabbi, none of them will help you pray your way out of this. I don't care how many degrees they could have a PhD. You're not going to pray your way out of this. Jesus Christ is not going to come back and just lift you out of this, okay? This is what we have to do, okay? And that's what I'm trying to show you, all right? So we're gonna move on. All right, I'm gonna minimize myself, and we're gonna go on and show how Christianity spread around the world. Okay, and we're going to take a look at how long it took for it to happen. Okay, we already know, and in the previous interviews, we showed that from the year 500 AD up until around 1000 AD or 1100 AD, they were concentrated on forcing Christianity throughout Europe. That's when Patrick, who now we celebrate every year on St. Patrick's Day here in America, he was assigned to go and drive out the Druids, the snake people, okay? So now, Constantine said that he will conquer the world with the cross, the Bible, and Christianity. And look at what Willie Lynch, look at the Willie Lynch letter, How to Make a Slave, and what it contributed, all right? So when we come down here, Willie Lynch letter said, he had a foolproof plan to control slaves at least 300 years in America and the Caribbean after slavery. I didn't put that on here. But the 300 years that he's guaranteeing are 300 years after slavery. Okay? This is the Willie Lynch letter of How to Make a Slave. Okay? They have a nice audio of this that, you don't have to read it. You can listen to it while you're riding in your car. But you see here, he says, in my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control your slaves at least 300 years. All right. So I wanted to show you this document. All right. Now, this was used in and throughout the Caribbeans. Now, Jamaica, man, they wrote a Bible called the Slave Bible. You can look it up. I don't have it on this presentation. But the Slave Bible was written as first for the Jamaican slaves because they were the hardest to break. Okay? So they came up with the Slave Bible. But this formula here is what they came up with to break us. And if you read them through here, they're talking about pulling slave. You take the strongest slave, male slave, and you tie one arm and a leg to a horse and one arm and a leg to another horse, and you rip them apart in front of everybody. So these are the torture methods. Okay, I'm not going to stick on this too long, all right? But it's here, okay? So, all right. So these are the things that I want you to understand, all right? So when we're tracking this, we were slaves from 1619 to 1865, which is 246 years, okay? So we African Americans got our freedom in 1865. From 1865 to 2005 is only 160 years. So we have 140 years left in this psychological mentality that has been embedded in us that he predicted it will last. That's what I want to show you. All right, we got to look at our timeline. All right. Africa was fully colonized in 1914. Remember we went over the Berlin Conference in 1883, and 30 years later, 1914. In 1883, I think only 14% of the African continent was colonized. After the Berlin Conference, 30 years later, over 90% of Africa was colonized, everywhere except Ethiopia and Libya. So we got to keep the time frame. All right. So the African continent became fully colonized in 1914 to 1990 when Libya gained its independence. However, Europe has paid proxies everywhere throughout the continent to ensure their best interest is protected. Okay? What we need to look at with this understanding is how important it is to stop this religious indoctrination of our children from birth. I'm gonna pause there for a second. Because when I look at this, and now that I'm really getting to see and understand Africa, and I'm looking at what we had to go through here in America after post-slavery, nothing. They gave us nothing, okay? Nothing, okay? And when I look at Africa and the colonizers started to leave, they gave you nothing. In fact, a lot of the French were talking about blowing up things that they had made so that you had nothing, okay? So you gained your freedom in 1990, okay? So you're just in that initial stage of coming out of colonization just like we were. And for us not to see it, not to recognize it, when I say us, American blacks, Jamaican blacks, everywhere, that has had freedom longer than that, to not understand it, see it, and recognize that you are where we were, we will stay detached. Okay? Now, the religious indoctrination that I'm talking about, here's the example. Who are the first faces and names a child learns? Mom, dad, siblings, relatives, and a white god who looks like no one in the family. I have a typo in here. This is the trauma for a child. This is trauma for a child's developing mind. All right? Think about the psychological effects this has on a child. Okay? Once an image is embedded in our minds, regardless of whether it's a child or an adult, once that image is embedded in your mind, or especially the first memory, it's very hard to remove it, especially when they see mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles just shouting how good Jesus is to them. Okay? That's how important this is. That's how important it is that we stop this indoctrination. So we need to take control of this. All right? When that little baby comes out and sees that image on the wall, and then is taken to church, and when he gets to be 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, and all he's seeing is, us just screaming, just losing our minds, it converts that child into that mentality. All right? We need to stop that. All right? Now, that's how this psychological indoctrination works. They have trained us how to train our children for them through church, mostly using all black faces. The United States eugenics program stated they will use the black pastors to control the blacks. They will strictly control the black pastors, masters, massa, passa. So they are in the background and stay out of sight. Okay? That's how they work. The church is a proxy. If you can't see it that way, I'm showing you my evidence. My evidence may not be acceptable as your evidence, but I have the documentation. Remember something, everything that I'm showing you is objective evidence. That means you can touch it, you can read it, you can find it for yourself. No one has given me any objective evidence of anything in the Bible, of anything that I have been taught. Maybe you have. If you have, please share it with the rest of us, because this is a safe place for everybody to show the evidence. All right? To show it. All right? We're going to move on down. Okay. Now what we're looking at is how Christianity and Jesus Christ spread around the world. This slide just showed that Constantine, this a little bit, said that he would use the Bible, cross, Christianity to conquer the world. All right? So let's look at how he was doing that. We talked about the European Inquisitions and how they affected every continent on earth and every nation on earth, okay? Right. Right. The map on the next page shows how the European countries colonized, controlled, or influenced between 1500s and 1960. The purple is Europe. The orange countries are the ones never under European rule. Almost the entire rest of the map, all the green, blue, and yellow, were dominated by Europe to some extent. Influence is pretty much a euphemism, and often, not all, that different than outright domination. Okay, so let's look at the map. Okay. Now you see here it says I'm right here under Europe, where it says never colonized by Europe. It is this kind of oranges. Now look, you see, these are the only places on Earth that were not colonized. All right? There are only 4 countries that escaped European colonization, colonialism completely. Japan and Korea successfully. They evaded the domination in part due to their strength of diplomacy and perhaps their distance. All right. Thailand was spared when the British and French empires decided to let it remain independent as a buffer between British-controlled Burma and the French in Indochina. All right. So when we look at what Europe controlled, is in purple. All of this was Europe. Colonized or controlled by Europe is in green. All of Africa, all of this area here, all of Australia, all of these islands, all of this, all of South America, all of North America, all of Greenland was colonized or controlled by Europe. Partially European control or influenced is in the lighter green, which is China. This area here is pretty much China. Okay, now if you look up what areas in China were colonized, it'll show you there were colonies all down in there. All right. This is where Europe influenced. It was these little small areas. Okay. So when we're looking at this on a timeline and we're looking at this, the same thing that was done to blacks when they got here in North America, Canada, all of this area here, South America, it was pretty much done at the same time. It expanded. These are the areas that when they got here on the Nenta, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, coming with a Bible in their hand, telling you to pray, it spread it. It just went everywhere. It didn't get to Africa. Now this is the timeline we're looking at. So keep this in mind. We got our freedom in 1883. No, 1865. That's when they started going into Africa. Okay, at that time they had about maybe 10% of Africa colonized. So when we were getting our freedom, Africa's freedom was being taken away from them. So they are 200 years behind us. 1619. Yeah, about almost 300 years behind us. When the colonization went into Africa, it was about 300 years after we were forced into slavery. So their recovery is 200 years behind us, is what I need everyone to understand. And I don't think American blacks know this. A lot of them are gonna say, why do I care? Okay, well, you're still detached. Okay, we're gonna try to grow out of that mentality, because the main thing I want you to understand, this continent right here, Africa, is going to be the fastest growing economy on earth very soon. Okay? But what I'm also trying to emphasize is the Americans here, the African Americans here in America, please look at opportunities in Africa. Okay? You'll be shocked. You'll be surprised at the opportunities that are available for you right now in Ghana, right now in Kenya. Now, I know those two places specifically because I'm dealing with Tracy Kadeta and I'm dealing with Francis. All right? And we're talking. All right? So let's talk about what people can do right now that I don't think anybody understands. America is pushing American farmers out. They want you out. They want you done. They'll loan you money in ways that they know you can't pay it back because they want your land. Because they don't want independent farming anymore. They don't want independent commercial farming anymore. They want government regulated farming so they can do their GMO and their RMNA. Let them have it. Listen, with all the main thing that could help Africa right now the most is teaching them how to farm, teaching them when to plant what crop, teaching them the skills of farming. Okay? They need that. We need sponsors that can say, I can send hoes, rakes, shovels, tillers, things to till the soil, because right now, most of the tribal people, they're doing this by hand. I was shocked. I saw a video my sister Tracy Kadeta did on what they need. And I was shocked. And I just saw it last night. Okay? So American farmers, especially, this is everybody, but especially blacks that have lost your farm. I'm pretty sure that if you reach me, and I'm gonna try to get Tracy and Francis on a presentation that we're doing together so that we can get some contact information. But I'm sure the country of Ghana, they've already said, blacks, African Americans, you don't even need a passport to come home. Just come home. Now they didn't say come to Ghana. They said come home. This is your home. All right? You have something that Ghana needs, just offer it to them. Okay? We grew up looking at Tarzan and Jane and Cheetah, and they gave us the lie about Africa. Okay? This is a beautiful place, especially Ghana, Kenya. Man, you're talking about beautiful places, and you're talking about fast growing places and all around Kenya. Just go on and search East Coast of Africa, Kenya, and look at Rwanda. Look at these places. Beautiful places, okay? But there are only two classes, those that have and those that don't, okay? And when you're talking about tribal people that never had the freedom, okay? They weren't enslaved like we were on plantations. They weren't enslaved where their job was growing crops, harvesting crops, picking cotton, okay? They have this land, but they don't know how to cultivate it. They don't know how to plant which crops. And from what I saw last night, everybody in the Tutsi tribe will have all of the same crops. So if we can teach this family to grow corn and this family to grow potatoes and this family to grow string beans and this one to grow peas, we have something to trade and we all can eat. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring some attention to that, and I'm trying to show the American farmers. And I'm starting with the farmers because I know they're trying to put you out of business, for one. Number two, I know that the continent, that the countries of Ghana and Kenya will receive you well, okay? We just need this information to go a little bit viral, okay? And hopefully some of the tractor companies, John Deere or whoever, Farm All or whoever, will say, you know what? I'll donate 100 tractors, or I'll donate 500 tillers to help out, okay? And once we can get somebody to help us, and once it gets started, and once it becomes where it's on the news, yeah, okay? So that's why I'm thinking, I don't think small, I think big. Because if I think big, and if I can get 10% of it, if I can get 20% of it, I'm successful. But if I think small, and I don't get any of it, I'm wasting my time. So after I saw this last night with Tracy, I said I wanted to spend a little bit of attention on this. So take a good look at the whole world, except these few little places here, and this color right here that says never colonized. They were colonized or had British influences over it. And what came along with the British influences? Missionaries, Bibles. There's something wrong with you. You need to be saved. God doesn't like you the way you were created. You need to be like us. No, we don't. All right. So we're going to go back and we're going to finish this up. All right. All right. During the colonial period in America and throughout all of these places I just showed you on the previous slide of how they colonized, torture and violence were used to control and oppress various groups. Colonial massacres, ethnic cleansing, and cultural genocide were employed to weaken native sovereignty and control indigenous populations. Archaeological evidence also shows that human remains from that period or trauma from blows to their heads and arms. They beat us to death. You remember back a few videos, few presentations I showed that here in America, I think it was in 1965, they created a casual killing act to make it legal for killing blacks here in America as long as they were correcting us. They could beat us to death. And the people that they were beating to death were American slave children. And the people beating them to death were white women. Okay. In Manhattan, New York, African bones of women in their teens were starved. And when they found these remains, they found out that they were starved to death. They were starved to the point that they had never reached a menstrual cycle, and the tendons had detached from their bones. That's how hard they worked us here in America. On slave camps and labor. Okay. But that's also how we learned how to do everything. You see, it wasn't the white people that were doing the inventions. It was the black people, the slaves, to make their work easier. But because we were slaves, we had no rights to anything. So the master would take it and get a patent on it and put it in his name and get rich. So we became innovative here in America as slaves. They didn't know how to plant corn. They didn't know how to do these things. We had all of the skill. That's also why they started unions, because black people had all of the skills. All right, don't want to stick on it too much. Now, everywhere that they colonized, they used the same Bible. Missionaries, they used the same Bibles, missionaries, guns, bombs, whips, and chains, all done in Jesus Christ's name. So we had the choice. All I'm trying to get somebody to tell me, People say, well, it's my choice. Just show me from what I've shown you above. When was it a choice? It wasn't a choice until we had been indoctrinated to it for over 200 years. Then we started saying, well, I choose to do this. No, you didn't. Your choice was made through indoctrination, all right? That's the way I see it. You don't have to see it that way. I'm just showing it to you, all right? Then look at the map, the continent of Africa, and tell me, get that map. And you look at the violence and the way that they control us to establish dominance, to oppress us. You know, don't forget what oppression is. You're not anything. It's just going to oppress you and just lower you down to the lowest standard. You tell me, when was it a choice, right? So when they create a storybook saying, God said only they are his chosen, we should be their slaves and they our masters, and they gave us this white God named Jesus. It is absolutely impossible for Christianity and Jesus Christ not be responsible for this. Does anyone see anything wrong with this but me? Okay, like Islam is responsible for everywhere Islam is. They did the same thing. All three of these Abrahamic faiths do the same thing. All right? The laws of probability and statistics alone tell us these odds are 99.9999%. It's like if you took a maternity test and the doctor comes back and says it's your baby. This is the Christianity and Jesus baby. That's what the test results to me show. All right. Now I've attached a video down here. It's called The Dark Ages, When Blacks Ruled Europe. The Caucasian race didn't come out of the Caucasus Mountain until late into this. Okay, and that's what this video shows. And watch it all the way. And if you gotta, don't miss any of it. But down toward the end are the professors that the most well-known professors in African culture, spirituality, and history are speaking at the end of this. Okay, and a lot of the things that I'm showing you and telling you, I either learned from them or they qualified what I had learned on my own by teaching exactly what I've been teaching. All right. So take a good look at that. All right. We are almost going to finish this up. All right. We did this map. We did this. We're going to do this and we're going to get on out of here. All right, this is from a previous presentation. I showed this map, and I keep referencing that before the Berlin Conference in 1833, Africa was only colonized 10 to 14%. So in 30 years, everywhere but Libya and Ethiopia were colonized in Africa. Okay. Okay, colonize the average. Okay, let's go over this. So when we're keeping this in the reference of the timeline, the average length of time a place was colonized around the world is roughly several hundred years. Okay. Here's the article for that, right? Most European colonial empires span from the 15th century through the 20th century, meaning a typical colony would have been under rule for around 300 years. Okay, so I'm just showing you where I'm getting my information from. All right. So we see each place had the same periods of control, but they knew that they were going to hold on to Jesus Christ until the end. See, that's why they put that in. You're still under their control until you let him go. Okay? Because you're still under their mental and psychological indoctrination of who God is, what God said, what God wants, how to get to heaven. And they'll preach to you in church telling you, well, don't worry about it here on while you're alive. You'll get your reward in heaven. That's a lie. They're teaching it wrong. Okay? They're teaching something that they made up as historical, and it's not. Okay? And they all they tell you is all you have to do is believe. As long as you believe, you don't see any other animals walking around here on earth believing, but us. Okay, we need to get out of that. All right. Right. And as far as it goes, when people are telling you, well, this is a faith-based system, it has never, and I've shown you, it's never been a faith-based system. People didn't want to believe this. It's a fear-based religion. It's all established. It's all based on, it was all accomplished through killing people, beating people to death, enslaving them, oppressing them. And in the Willie Lynch letter, it says, this is why you need to understand these things. The Willie Lynch letter says we have to change the natural nature of the nigger like we change the natural nature of a wild horse. As long as you leave the horse wild, he won't want to work in the fields. He won't want to do anything you say. You have to break him of that. That he's no longer wild. That he doesn't want to be free. Then you can turn the horse loose in the pasture and let him breathe. That's what they did to us. Okay? So I need you to understand that. I'm gonna go over a couple of things and then we're gonna end. In the previous presentation, I mentioned first book of Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 48, where these were the Maccabees brothers, where they said the heathens would lay open the book of law. The book of law is the scriptures and the teachings, the African teachings. And they would paint over the images to create the heathens, and the heathens will paint over the images to make images of themselves. Well, then you have to ask yourself, who are the heathens? The ones that doing all of this stuff. They didn't just make Jesus white from the image of Yahshua. They made all of the angels white, all of the saints white. Everything became white. All right? All right. Okay. Africa is the next powerhouse. Not country, continent. All right? Nigeria has, I think it says 2 million people. Wait a minute. Nigeria's population, the average, now if I'm getting this right, Africa as a continent is a young continent. The average age, I think, is 20 years old. That means you're young, okay? I think the average age in Nigeria is 17 years old. There are 2 million people in Nigeria alone. That means 50% of the population is young. So if you look at each nation in Africa and you do the same kind of calculation, then understand that if we start now changing these minds of these youth, number one. Number two, if we convince them to go to school for engineering, instead of going to school to be a priest, to try to teach them how to pray out of this, and God and Jesus gonna fix it. In 20 years, they will be grown. Okay? The youth, the ones that are younger than them. If we can get those in their 20s to start teaching their children to break this curse, okay? In 20 years, Africa will be peaking, or not peaking, but the growth of Africa will be off the chart. All of these people are going to need cars. All of them are going to need new homes. Africa needs infrastructure, sewage and running water to every house. Start building that. The mines here now, so that when they get here, they're buying their cars in Africa. They're buying their luxury because they're not going to be buying little small cars. They're going to be rich. They're going to have money. We're growing out of this, okay? So if we look at it this way, now we have a plan. So we got a 50-year plan, just like they have a 50-year plan, right? All of the money that Africa is putting into the French banks because they're robbing us. The French money isn't worth anything in France. They don't even use their own money. They use the euro. Stop letting them pay you in French currency. It is only worth a dime in Africa. It's not worth anything. So they require Africans to put 85% of their money in French banks, but they're only eligible to use 20% of it. And when they need money, they loaned it back to them at the commercial interest rate. Got to stop that. That's done. Don't play this game anymore. All right? That's the last thing. Okay, that's about it. All right? So I'm just showing you some things. I do my best. Now, I may not, I'm probably not right about everything, but I'm going to be a lot more right than I'm going to be wrong. Okay? And I'm real good at trying to coordinate a way to fix things. That's what I did for a living. Okay? That's what I did. Identify the problem, wrote corrective actions, preventive actions, and it went away. And so I'm giving my best at identifying the problem, writing corrective actions. Here's how we can fix it. And we put preventative actions in place so it never happens again. All right, work with me. And again, please like, subscribe, and share. Appreciate all comments. One of my best friends, Arthur Cole, I spoke with him yesterday, and he said, "Ray, you're doing a great job on your channel, man. I really love what you're doing." And he said, "You know what? The one thing that you said that shocked me the most was 15,000 Africans graduate as priests, and only 1,500 as engineers." He said, "That blew my mind." I said, "Yeah, Cole, because they keep us separated." Okay, so let's blow this thing up. Let's get this information out. Let's go do some work together. All right, Ashe, and have a great day.